Welcome to the Vet Med Wellness and Leadership Podcast, where we discuss central challenges vet med leaders face, such as burnout, stress, and difficult interactions with clients and staff, just to name a few. In each episode, you will hear about actionable solutions that you can apply to your practice and invitations to connect with fellow leaders who are passionate about improving the wellness of the vet med profession. By subscribing, liking, commenting, or sharing this podcast, you are helping more veterinary professionals find the resources shared in these episodes. Thank you in advance for listening and supporting this show. I hope you enjoy it. Hey everybody, Crystal Stokes here. I'm excited to introduce you all to Dr. Kelly and Dr. Robert Hutchison, who are the founders of Whiskers Aging Pet Care. And what I found really interesting about this new model they developed is that they were really seeking to replenish what they feel the veterinary medicine profession had really left behind, which is time. So let's start off on that note. If you all could tell us a bit more about the origin story and this loss of time and how you're trying to address it.
Oh, happy to do that. White Whiskers was really born out of many dinner table conversations between me, who had spent 10 years in general practice with a background in rehab. So I was used to the typical half an hour appointments, which is really probably 10, 15 minutes of doctor time if you're lucky. And then Rob, who had spent the last 2 years working in mobile end-of-life care, where he had a much longer appointments and an ability to connect with his clients, but he had not had the benefit of seeing them over and over again. So we had a lot of different conversations about how we could sort of bring the two models together.
I often would wish that I could see these patients earlier. Many of them were receiving excellent care. But some were maybe cast off a little bit, or maybe their primary care wasn't as accessible, and there was a breakdown rather in communication. And if I could have gotten there a few months earlier, we could have made this whole experience better. And so, we really honed in on our senior pets as being this unique niche of patient demographic that is underserved because they're kind of their own thing. And as I always tell people, they're, 10 years, the same animal. And then all of a sudden, and you're trained for it and you sort of know what to expect. And then all of a sudden, just overnight, it's a different animal with different needs. And are we doing a good job of educating our clients on what some of those new needs are? And do we even have the time to do that in our busy schedules? Yeah,
these are the patients who I would come in and I would just sit on the floor, and maybe there would be a 5 or 10 minute exam, but we would just sit for 10 or 15 minutes and I would always be running late. But they wanted to talk about what their experience felt like. They wanted to share the challenges of giving this or that medication, the hearing, the hearing loss, the eyesight changes, the mobility stuff. There was just never enough time to talk about it, to talk about everything. And so that was probably the first thing that we decided really early on, was that time and communication were going to be the two things we focused on. And for time, we started off saying these first appointments need to be an hour and a half. And how do we create a structure of a practice so that we can do that and make a living and, actually be able to keep this up? Because probably the number one reason why practices fail over and over again is it's so challenging to charge appropriately for what you want. And so how do you work on creating a practice around? That was our value. Our very first value was time. And then we created the practice to support that.
Yeah, speak to the infrastructures. I think a lot of people will be wondering about this. I know if I were in a position of listening to this podcast, I'm thinking, wait, production. Like if I'm not cranking out, for an hour or more, how is this even sustainable from a model of profit and loss? So how did you all address that? I think it's interesting, your approach to this.
Yeah. So, keep that overhead low, and know your boundaries, know who you are. We are not primary care. We work with primary care. And so in the beginning of our practice, we would go around to all of the umpteen million practices in this area. It's a big area that we serve. And we would give them our folder and we would say, hey, this is who we are. We're not here to step on your toes. We don't do lab work. We don't run diagnostics. That's your job. You've got the fancy equipment. You've got the busy schedules. What we're going to take off of your plate are those 7 p.m. phone calls at the end of the day when you're tired, you just want to get home, but nobody has spoken to these clients. Mm-hmm. And they're going to keep you on the phone and they got umpteen questions. And we'll take those over for you because we'll sit on the floor with the dog or the cat in their home where they're comfortable. And flush out all these questions. But we don't need a portable ultrasound to do that. We don't need, a fancy infrastructure. So we keep our staffing and our footprint, our financial footprint, real low so that we can limit our day to 5 clients. Mm-hmm. And where we give them our full attention. Mm-hmm. And we can drive the half hour away or however long we have to spend to get there, and still sort of hit those production levels.
It's so, it feels like I feel like the word sweet comes to mind. I know it sounds silly, but I'm imagining, I have an older cat. She's 15 and, I know her clock is ticking down and I see her health issues kind of creeping up. And I know that also from my experiences as a technician, that the end of life care, it just requires more time. It's more intimate. There are things that can fall through the cracks. And so having this time together and seeing a smaller volume of clients allows you all to juggle the things that you need to juggle to make sure things don't fall off the plate and to really spend that time understanding, this psychological and heart-based thing that they're going to go through, which is supporting their pet at the end of life. It's hard.
It is. And it's really that time is for the client, but it's also for the patient because so many of these patients, being able to talk to mom or dad for 15 minutes before you're even touching them, or being able to take the time where you're just petting them, but you're really kind of assessing them at the same time. Changing the pace is just so much, in my experience, better for my older patients because as they allow their body to relax some, I am able to detect some much more subtle signs of discomfort than I would be in an exam room where they're anxious, they're tense, the floor is slippery, we're rushing. The other thing is that sometimes my treatments are an hour long. And I see most of my patients anywhere from weekly to once a month. But it is sometimes halfway through a treatment, just in the middle of just conversing about how has your week been, what's going on, what's changed, that all of a sudden they'll have an aha moment, the owner, and they'll think of something that actually could be pivotal. They don't realize that it's pivotal, but it could provide like the tiny piece of the puzzle that fits. It's that one symptom that I'm putting together in my brain and I'm going, oh my gosh, this is what's going on. And I would never get there if in general practice, I just couldn't. But, and this has morphed and changed. You start out kind of trying to do too much and make everybody happy. 4 to 5 appointments a day is my sweet spot so that I don't get burned out. So then the next thing that we had to ask was, how much do we need to charge so that we can keep our schedule this way? Mm-hmm. And then how do we educate clients on that? Mm-hmm. Because it terrified me to charge what we were going to, have to charge at the beginning, because I was so used to the $60, office exam appointments. And how is anyone ever gonna, pay this much for me, for little old me, who again, you're never really giving yourself the credit that you deserve. And it was a huge moment, and it was growth, but we really together figured out how to do it, and it's not an issue.
It's scary to price yourself appropriately.
Yeah.
What you do, looking out at the brick and mortar model, you see this race to the bottom. Oh, so-and-so does $60 exams, but, the ones down the road do $55 exams. And it's this race to undercut the doctor's time, the doctor's experience and expertise. And then how do we make it up? We make it up by charging extra for the pharmacy, or for this, in clinic store, or for all those diagnostics. Mm-hmm. And at the end of that experience for the client, they may feel like, they got a cheap deal with their exam, which was the important part. Mm-hmm. And then got nickel and dimed with everything else that added up, that they didn't totally understand because they didn't have enough time to converse and really think about all of the transactions that were taking place. Mm-hmm. And what we wanted to do was say, you know what, we're not going to do all those things. And we have some product. We do sell some things that we have researched and we stand behind, and we sell them just above cost for us.
Yeah.
We don't mark it up hardly at all, because we don't want cost to be an impediment to care. And at the same time, we charge for our time, because that's what we're there to do. And so it doesn't matter if they get all the products or they get no products, we're still paid appropriately for what we're doing, because we're giving them our time. We're pouring ourselves into these appointments. And that's a lot. It's, that's it takes a lot out of you, which is why, after 5 appointments, we're both done.
Yeah. And this is where it's really about quality versus quantity, and I think that different people operate in different ways. I think there are some types of people out there. By the way, this is my later life kitty cat. This is Hexie, the one I mentioned earlier. She's my 15-year-old. She's mostly blind and very, very lovable kitty. She follows my voice around, so that's why she's here giving hugs.
She moves around pretty well.
So what I was saying on this idea of you all, I think, Rob, you said this, know who you are. Maybe Kelly too, you both have said this, know yourself well and know how you like to operate. And for you, I think you both really get a lot out of the depth and really spending the time and sharing the expertise and doing things in a very detailed way. Like that relationship building is so important to you. And I think there are other types of practitioners out there who may just really enjoy more of the diagnostics, or moving things quickly, or doing a lot of procedures, or shooting the x-rays and being a practitioner and just move. And that stimulates them. A long drawn out session would drain them. So knowing your niche, and then, bringing in clients who really want that, to say, I want to be served that way. And then the most interesting part to me too, is how you all really honor the brick and mortar practices that are out there that are doing the GP work, and that they need to collaborate with people like you. It's this kind of symbiotic relationship where the GP can be doing diagnostics and x-rays and all these different things that need to be done. And then you all can spend the quality time that the GP may not have available for their client.
Yeah, we absolutely to discount what they do in GP in any way, shape, or form, because those things are absolutely necessary. And they have to charge a certain way so that they can pay for their building, for their staff, for all of that equipment.
Yeah.
I think that just for us, we wanted to, our experiment was to see if we could create a model that was different. And it's been successful.
Without question, we can't succeed without their model. Mm-hmm. We are a supplement to their model. And everybody they've got a different way. There are pure academics out there who love the science but don't really know how to get their hands dirty with the animals or with the clients. There are people who go into veterinary medicine because they love animals, but don't totally know about the people. We're people. I was a cultural anthropology major. Kelly was an English major. These are, second, third careers for us. We love our people. And when I show up for an end of life appointment, I am there just as much for the client as I am for the animal. And in order to be able to do that, be successful at it, I have to be able to give them, again, time. And so, we rely on our brick and mortars to do what they do, to be who they are, so that we can be who we are.
Yeah. I really like that idea of the culture of abundance, that there's enough for everybody. Sharing in this process and working together is what really makes it work, that you all are in this collaborative relationship.
I am 10 years in general practice. I am very familiar with that feeling, and things have really changed. I mean, even just since I've graduated, things have changed so much. But there was always this feeling of having to keep everything in-house. It felt very insular. There was anxiety about transferring. Are we going to lose that client or that patient? There's so many vets out there. Now all of a sudden we're in the opposite. Like, there are not enough vets for the number of pets out there. And in our model, one of my favorite things, again, and we're talking about what brings us value and how do I make myself, feel happy and satisfied at the end of the day. Part of this has been connecting with all of the vets in the area and building these relationships. And, we have people that call every single day that our model is not right for them or what they're looking for. And we have a list. And we are, the girls that answer the phone, the women that answer the phone, our care technicians, to put every effort into making sure we pair that client with the right vet for them. And there are times where having a relationship at different hospitals means that we can get our clients to the right doctor at the right time. And so it's become a situation where referring out doesn't mean we're losing something. We're gaining a relationship with another vet. Our clients are happy. The animal's living longer, which means that everybody is benefiting.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's fighting a little bit for a niche. And that means that, there are different strengths, different abilities that each practice has in our area. And by building coalitions with them, their strengths become our strengths. And they become tools in our toolbox that we can use to better the experience for our clients or folks who, aren't our clients, but are looking, who are in need. And we get it back. It's reciprocated. So the bridges that we build, the networking that we do, it increases the value for the client and the patient, but also us as veterinarians, which, all too often we overlook. All of our discussions center around, well, how do we sell to the client? How do we increase their sense of value, so that we can improve those online reviews? But their experience isn't the only one in this relationship. It's important that our experience and our value is taken into account as well.
Yeah, I like that it's you're not taking a myopic view. You're really zooming out and saying, look at this whole ecosystem that exists and how can we all work together? It's so much more collaborative rather than competitive. And I think it's natural for things to be reorienting towards a more collaborative model because the pain points are so high now, right? Like the staffing shortage is just mind-boggling how difficult it is to find staff. And then more and more people have pets, so there's more demand. We don't have people to take care of them, so we can no longer, there's no need to compete, right? We have more animals to see than we can possibly take care of, so we have to work together. And it's been interesting to notice how I used to see hospitals that you could see that they were siloed even within the hospital, like by departments, there'd be all these little silos, and then the hospital itself with its own little silo. And I think these silos are starting to fall apart, where even within hospitals as well as between hospitals, more and more collaboration has to occur because you can't exist otherwise at this point. It's just getting to be too much. How do you keep going?
If there was ever a time to, I mean, I know we're all exhausted and we all feel overworked and we all feel exhausted, but if there was ever a time to really change our industry, it's right now. I mean, we have the opportunity now. I feel very strongly we are in a position to change. We can either keep trying to do it the same way, but it kind of feels like you're trying to, get a square peg in a circle hole, or we can accept that this is where we are and we can start being like really creative to think about how things can be done differently and how we can all go home with more job satisfaction, but our clients can be happier. I think it has to do with really finding out what's important to you and then what you think is missing, and then figuring it out if you can create a model that fills what that is that you think is missing.
I'm going to give another example too, if you don't mind, because I think when people are listening to this, sometimes it's hard to think, well, what do I want and what do I need? An example I'll give from my own life was, I went through the journey of being a psychotherapist where, it's just a 50-minute session. That's all you get. And you don't contact me in between because these boundaries, so bottle everything up inside of you until the next 50-minute session. And then we spend the 50 minutes like you regurgitating your week. And we have this much time left for actually movement forward. And I was like, this is so unsatisfying. And I, as a client, when I was receiving psychotherapy, experienced the same frustration. This doesn't really feel progressive. I feel like I'm just regurgitating stuff every week and there's not enough time. I always feel like, what, the session's already over? So I shifted my model into coaching where you can make it up, have much more flexibility in how you deliver services. And similar to your all's model where I'd say it's month by month or 6 months at a time to have a full arc of transformation. And then we have longer sessions and a lot of contact in between. So I know everything that happened. So you don't have to spend an hour telling me what happened because I already know, because you have a reflection journal and a tracker. So now I'm up to date, but you have to charge appropriately because there's all this time where I'm on your shoulder. And how much more I love my work, and the results really paid off. You could see the client was so much more satisfied. I was more satisfied. And what I hear and what you're doing, like to bring it back home to you, you all are doing the same thing. You're saying, what would help me to not be burned out, to flourish as a veterinarian, to do the work that I'm on this planet to do? And how can I take care of the clients, the other veterinarians in this ecosystem, and the patients so that everybody's getting what they need and want? And that's what you're trying to do here.
A burned out vet isn't operating at their best. Mm-hmm. They're not practicing the best medicine. And so we help others by helping ourselves. And likewise, it's clear we've got a mental health crisis in our industry, which I know is a big theme of your show. Yeah. And, so how can we reach across reach outside of our proverbial bubbles and lift each other up, support each other? The pandemic, it laid bare so many of the problems in our industry by kind of turning the volume up on them. And so, Kelly and I have watched that. We've taken notes and we've said, okay, those are problems. What can we do to address them? What can we do to solve them at least?
Well, and this year has been a humbling and dynamic process of learning as we go as well. Like you're speaking to communication. And, at the beginning, I struggled because I was trying to be super available to everyone all the time. And we've had to learn how to use our care technicians. We have something that clients really seem to desire is that communication in between appointments that we didn't ever have time for in the general practice. So how do we do that? But how do we do that where they're feeling like they're heard, but I am not at people's beck and call all the time? And we've tried things that didn't work. And then we've changed things and we've come up with systems, so there are People can text, people can call, people can email. Everything goes through the care technicians first. Over time, I've realized that I do better if I have one full day a week that's just office hours. And everyone knows if there's anything that's really big that I have to spend a lot of time on, that's the day they're going to get an answer back. I've learned that I don't work very well in the home and I get waylaid. So, I go find a coffee shop that I spend the day working on with my headphones and my phone. But I think you can't be afraid to make mistakes, learn as you go, be constantly changing, because you're definitely not going to get it right the first time around.
Right. Oh, that's very relieving for anybody listening that might be thinking of trying something new, to give yourself permission to make mistakes, because that's how we learn and adapt. And it's probably forever and ever. Like there's no end to the adaptation process, because you're working with humans and animals, and we're living organisms, which means that we're always changing. And so your dynamic and your ways of addressing the challenges you face, like with communication and how much time to give and how to structure it, that leaves you feeling still energized and refreshed to continue doing this work.
If you think that you got it right the first time, then you're either incredibly lucky or something else, because somebody would have figured it out by now. If it was so easy to get it right on that first try. So you got to just be able to know how to pivot on make small changes until that piece fits into the puzzle.
I got to say too, I don't know if people listening can pick this up just by hearing you all for the first time, but something else I'd like to just say, it's sort of off topic, but don't do this alone. Like you two as a partnership are such a dynamic duo. And often what you see in these idealized partnerships is that you really have a complementary role fit. What I see with you guys is sort of this like visionary integrator combo. And to know that about yourself, to do that discovery of really knowing the lane you want to be in, that you crush it when you're in it. You love it. It energizes you. It's where you would be if you had your magic wand. And to find your counterparts that can fill in the missing gaps. That is so critical. Because I think another thing I see, especially in smaller practices with doctors that are trying to run their own practices, wearing all the hats and then feeling so drained by it because they're doing work that is not fulfilling at all. The weird part about it is that they're like, for me, for instance, please don't ask me to do like data entry. It's just so draining to me and so repetitive, but I know people that love it. They say, oh, it's so relaxing. I say, wonderful. I'd love to give you this project. And then they are happy about that. And I'm happy not to do it. So the you two and how you work together, I think is another really powerful aspect of your company and how you continue to support each other and integrate and innovate as you face these challenges.
Well, I think the unspoken rule when we started this was that she wasn't going to ask me to come up with rehab plans as long as I didn't ask her to code software.
See? It's perfect. Well, so let's bring this into this idea around ownership. We have a lot of younger vets, right, that are coming into this scene, and you're faced with a menu of options. You can go the corporate route. Do you want to have your own practice? You want to work for another practice? And I'll kind of also just put a thought out there, which is, where you guys, you might want to say where you're located. And then what about this being, available in other places? Like I'm thinking about here in Santa Barbara, I don't think anything like this exists. I don't know what I would do during the end of life stage for my animal. And so those are the two big things that are on my mind right now. I don't know if you'd like where you'd want to start with that.
Well, as far as end of life practices, they are gaining popularity all across the country. But because they are niche, you're going to have more access to them in higher density populations than you will, necessarily in smaller populations. And that is something to consider, when you're building your business model. There are other practices like ours. We were not the first ones to say, ooh, senior pets. There's somebody who's been forgotten. But we are on the beginning of that movement. And I think that we will see more of that in years to come.
Mm-hmm. And I think that we spent a long time developing a model that I think the different parts of the practice, what he does and what I do, support each other. The way that we built it and engaged in the community. We've built this so far, and we have not done any advertising yet. It's all been strictly word of mouth. We are very active in the community. We volunteer, we make connections. I think we've built a model that absolutely is reproducible in the right environment, with the right population and the right everything. And I think there's nothing more than we would like to work with other vets who, would be interested in doing something like this, because we've done a lot of the heavy lifting and the groundwork. But absolutely, I mean, this is doable, and it's very fulfilling. In fact, our biggest challenge right now is that I have a wait list, of like 10 people. I'm not taking people off the wait list until I know I can give them the quality that everybody else is getting. So we're now out in the boat where we're looking to hire, and finding the right, person to come help us. But there's other ways to grow. And a lot of people, when I have my social media posts or things looking for hiring, they say, "Oh my gosh, I love it. I can't move right now. My kid's like this age, or my kids." And absolutely, we haven't gotten there yet, but I think there are ways that we could, still help and still grow, outside of our community.
Mm-hmm. And do you want to share where you all are located?
Yeah, we are in Colorado Springs, Colorado, in the Front Range, and we Colorado Springs, for any listeners who don't know, is I don't know what it is, the 50th largest city. But it's the largest small town you'll ever be in, and it's huge. It is. We cover about a 300 square mile radius. Is that a radius? No,
wow,
it
says very spread out.
It's very spread out. So we do put some mileage on the vehicles for what we do, but it also means that we get to meet a diverse group of pet owners. Colorado, of course, giving a shout out to the number one state in the nation to be a dog. So we are very dog and cat dense here. So it's sort of the perfect place for us to be.
Great. So when I look at the big picture of everything we've talked about today, something that keeps coming back up for me, I wanted to have you speak to it maybe just a little bit more, was this thing around really valuing yourself and how to advocate for that, because I think this is a block that I see across many professions. So an example I'll give was for myself. Early before grad school, I was a personal trainer and kind of a fancy one. I was a medical exercise specialist, and I was working for a company. I was making like $20 an hour. I was like, yay! And then come to realize the clients were paying $120 for that session. I was like, they value me. They think what I just did for them was worth $120, but I'm getting paid $20. It's like, and then taking the leap of quitting that company and finding private clients was so terrifying, because there's like this imposter syndrome of feeling that nobody's going to pay that. You're not worth that. It's just, I think speaking more to that of how you could talk even to maybe younger veterinarians to really recognize your education is so valuable, as well as your experience as a human and as a pet owner yourself, like bringing your human heart as well as your giant brain and all the knowledge you have, that this is something so valuable to a potential client and patient, and how to recognize that and be more confident in asserting yourself to get paid what you're worth.
It took me 10 years to get here, or more than 10 years. Rob has been telling me that I should start my own rehab practice. 10 years ago was the first time he started telling me that. And massive imposter syndrome, but I haven't, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm brand new. I haven't, done this before. Multiple times along the way, this has been suggested to me, and it's terrifying. But we, and then over the years of just seeing how life, takes you, what I've come to learn is when I walk into people's houses right now, my biggest strengths are me, my personality, and my education, my hands, and my experience. And how many, and there's still areas that are brand new, and I see things for the first time all the time. And in this new model, I finally developed the confidence to be able to go out there and then still be able to say, you know what, I've never seen this before. I'm going to do my research. If I'm the best person still to help you with this, then I'm going to help you fix this. If I'm not, then I'm going to send you to the right person. And that has been a huge mountain of growth for me. And so I definitely think that as a new vet, you walk out without that confidence. And, especially, I'm sure it's men and women. Of course, my experience is as a woman. I've always struggled to advocate for myself regarding negotiations for salary or for all of that. So I guess advice wise is just, know that you're not alone. I think the biggest thing is just realizing that, all the social media, we all look so confident. Everyone is putting on a good face. But if you really talk to most of us inside, we all are nervous and we all have imposter syndrome. And then just working to do it anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, but you hit the nail on the head, Crystal. I mean, those clients were paying for an experience, and they were paying for an experience with you. Mm-hmm. Now, it just so happened that you were working with a group that had a high overhead. Maybe they had offices, in some other state.
Yeah, it was really.
We were paying all kinds of different staff.
Yes.
But that's not what they were paying for. They were paying for their time with you. And when we do race to the bottom with our exam fees, how much of that messaging gets internalized by our vets? Mm-hmm. Well, I only make as much as I sell because what I do is very little. I'm only in that room for 15 minutes, and I make it up with surgeries and whatnot. But, and you as veterinarians, gentle listeners out there, you're more than that. You are the experience. You are what they are coming to connect to.
Yeah.
Not just for you to do something, but for you to offer them your experience and your expertise. And so, it's easy as an associate to fall into that trap. Now, owners, they take on the risk, and they take on the extra burdens of maintaining staff, dishing out the payroll, keeping the building, keeping everything operational. But every decision that they make is a decision that determines value for them. Mm-hmm. And as associates, whether you can in a ownership opportunity or not, how do we find our way back to that ownership mentality so that we can not only find new ways to benefit financially, but from those interpersonal interactions and how we interact and engage with our patients.
Yes. Oh, can you speak more to this idea of the co-op of independence?
Yes, absolutely. So, one of the things that we've seen it across the nation, is that between the changing veterinary student demographic that's going, largely female, and it's largely female of childbearing age. And so there is a huge amount of pressure that are put on these female new grads to both start a wild and woolly career, all the while, being chased by this tick-tock of their biological clock and, parents and when do I get grandbabies and how do I balance family?
We went through that.
And we went through that.
Yeah.
And it's a lot. Yeah. And it puts an extra burden on, I'm coming out with this tremendous student loan burden. I would love to focus on raising a family and just getting a return on my education for a hot second. I'm not in the position to put in a bid for a practice ownership. And guess what? Even if you could, most of the time you're going to be outbid 2-3 to 1 by some corporation with deep pockets.
Yeah.
So we are bleeding our independent mom and pop practices left and right. They're going the way of the dinosaurs.
I think that a lot of, and I've worked in a lot of different practices, and I think that it is the experience of a lot of the owners that the young vets don't want to own. And I don't know if it's exactly that or it just it's too much. We can't afford it. We've got too many other priorities and burdens that we're trying to take care of. It feels so big and scary because we haven't had any kind of business classes, nothing, real, like learning about, how to market. And we're really, really terrified by some of the mental health crisis. And, you own, and then what if it doesn't work out? And then you feel stuck, and then it's scary. And so, just here in the Springs, we're watching the few independent vets just in the last year disappearing. And we feel like our strength, I'm not good at being told what to do, and so I want to find other vets to work with, who are like me. And we feel like we may not have the answer yet, but it has to be in working together. There's got to be a way that as we're making these connections and we're supporting each other and we're promoting each other and we're, sharing in all of this, we feel like there has to be a way that we can do something to maybe stem the tide of this a little bit.
Absolutely.
And again, that comes from a culture of abundance and being able to say, listen, you're an independent vet. I think that forecasting ahead, 10 years, we look at the state of human medicine and what the corporatization. That's a mouthful. What that's done to the human side, and it's opened doors for some. But I think that the vast majority of patients that you speak with will say, things have gotten real bad. And it's because there's a disconnect now between a doctor being able to run his or her own practice and that doctor-patient relationship. And I think that we're going to see the same kind of pitfalls happen in veterinary medicine. So I think that the existence of those independent practices is really important. And so we're motivated to say, okay, how do we all survive? And we survive by joining hands and working together. And so if we can create a cooperative of independence, maybe we can negotiate for better benefits. We have better buying power if we're working together. For health insurance, for benefit packages for our employees, for inventory purchasing. All of these things that we might be able to, and let's not forget or undervalue just the knowledge that, hey, we're on a broader team as well. We're working together, somebody to really rely on these other groups, these other practices. And the mental support, being able to reach out to one another and know that you're supported in this way.
Good.
I mean, just being an independent vet, and I think about the people that I know and their experience with human medicine as well, where, again, you're in and out. You feel like they're running tests just because they have to, like they've taken away the art and the practice of medicine. Mm-hmm. And that art is being able to sit and listen and take in all of these like little bits of information and come up with a plan to try to tease out the nuance of what's going on versus just running all these tests because that's the next thing on our flow chart that we have to do. Mm-hmm. And if we lose that, we've lost so much, and people are willing to pay, and people are willing to go out of their way they're willing for the human connection, for our time, for knowing me as a human being and not just, me and my white coat. I share probably more of my life with clients than I ever did in general practice. But then when I'm sick or when my kid's sick, you know what? They're great about, knowing that they need, to wait. I mean, there's so many benefits to us remaining individuals and remembering why we're doing this and connecting with others. And there's just got to be a way, and people want it. People want it. I mean, concierge medicine is the way human medicine is going.
Oh, yeah.
I think that we need to pay attention and not, wait too much longer before we really start looking at how we can change.
Oh yeah. I'm a user of concierge medicine myself because I had this, same experience in human medicine where putting somebody through a system where you just a number, it didn't work. And I love my functional medicine doctor. She has been just tremendous in my life of the difference that she's made and well worth every penny. So, I mean, another rabbit hole we could go down. I think, Rob, looks like you have something you wanted to add.
Oh, I think the only other thing I would add is when you are independent, when you are locally owned, all those dollars that they spend with us stay here. We focus on outsourcing for our network locally. Yeah. When you're working with a corporation, X percentage is getting siphoned off to, across the country. Some other community gets to benefit. And those practices, when you're an associate at a corporate practice mm-hmm. and you're tired, you're burnt out, how much community outreach are you going to do? How interconnected are you going to be with your community? It's just easier. You're more motivated in that ownership position. And so,
you're more motivated when you're all in it together.
And when you're all in it together.
And we're, I never was into social media before, and I kind of got pulled into it because you kind of have to do it. It's a game you have to play now. But gosh, every time I'm at the, I am using someone's product or I'm at a certain store and it connects in, I'm thinking now all the time, how can I give these people a shout out? How can I give these people a shout out? And they do the same for us. And then all of a sudden you're part of something and it is inspiring and it does give you the energy, when we're out trying to connect with local artists, on some of our first Fridays, because we want to promote local artists. It just, I'm tired at the end of the day too, but there's something that, helps me get up the energy to go out the door with my family, to walk around and take part in my community. And it harkens back to a time that I think a lot of us are nostalgic for, that actual human connection that I think is missing a lot.
Ooh, I just listened to a podcast today on, it's the Happiness Lab with Dr. Laurie Santos. And she did an episode on loneliness and that it's just such it's like the levels of loneliness are so high and there are different categories of loneliness. And one of them would be broadly like the social, I don't remember if that was a word they used, but like community or something loneliness where you don't feel like you're a part of anything. You might have your intimate partner or a small group of like friends that you play sports with or, have hobbies with, but the bigger community and where you fit in, you may feel like, I don't have that. And that can be a deep sense of loneliness. So not to get off track, but I do think you're speaking to how you all are fitting in and part of the mission that you're on, which is to contribute to this.
We've been looking for this our entire marriage, our entire relationship, we've longed to feel like we were a part of our community. And I sometimes joke, but I'm really serious when I talk to my clients and I say, this year, I went from feeling kind of isolated and insular, and I'm finding my tribe. There are these amazing people that I never would have come into contact with. And we have all different kinds of beliefs and different kinds of things, but they're pocketed all over the Springs. And I had no idea they were there. And it's absolutely beautiful.
Well, so that's even us meeting. So we'll start to bring this to a close. And on that note, I will say, it takes the courage. And I say the word courage means doing something even though you're afraid, right? It takes courage to put yourself out there and to be visible, to take an idea and take it out of your head and make it real. But by doing that, which is what you all have done, you make yourself visible, you connect with people, you share with them what you're doing, you listen. It's vulnerable. It takes courage, but look at what happens as a result when you let yourself be seen and be known. And that's kind of how we met. You had visibility. I found your company. We connected. We had some conversations, and here we are today. It's really magical how these things work. And I think for people listening today, if you're afraid, you have the imposter syndrome we spoke about earlier, start reaching out to people, don't keep it all in your head. Sharing is caring. Talk to people about it. Even the vulnerability aspect of saying, hey, I'm just thinking about these things, but I'm afraid to do it. Share that with somebody that can be a mentor to you, or somebody that's walked in those shoes ahead of you, treading the path. There's just so much good stuff that we've talked about today. And I'd love for people to know how they can find out more about you, or if they have questions about your model, they want to know more about how you've developed this and the details of how it's operating, if they're interested in possibly doing something like this themselves, or even growing their community. Maybe they're close to you there in Colorado Springs. What's the best way for them to find you?
So we are just about to launch a brand new website. And I've been saying that for the past year. But it's for real this time. Next couple of weeks, it's going to drop. But that is at www.whitewhiskers.vet. And that's vet as in veterinary, not net, which is sort of what everybody defaults to. But you can reach our email at contactus@whitewhiskers.vet. And there are a number of
we're on Facebook,
social media handles.
Great.
But you would have to Google those because we're not the social media people.
I think it's at White Whiskers Aging Pet Care.
I think it's
what I think it is.
We can put all that in the show notes. I can dig all that up. So we'll find you on the different social media platforms. We'll put those in the show notes. We'll have your website and the email that you listed.
That's perfect.
Yeah, we would love to share the energy, and I'm sure that we have stuff we could learn from other people out there. And so, like I said, we're building a community.
Yeah. So people hear that invitation, they mean it. Please do reach out. And Rob and Kelly, I really appreciate you all being here today. It's been a fantastic episode. And I feel really energized and inspired by what you all are building.
Well, thank you so much, Crystal. It's been great to be here.
Thank you for joining me today. I hope that you feel stoked after listening to this episode. And as always, I would love to hear your comments and feedback. Is there a topic that you want to know more about? Please let me know. And thank you again for subscribing and sharing your favorite episodes with others. It really means a lot.